Hi, I'm Marc Doty, and I'm here with the Arturia MatrixBrute, a synthesizer which I've made over 60 videos of. And to be honest, I feel like I really haven't even scratched the surface. This will probably sound hyperbolic, but really this is the electronic music studio that I think a lot of the synthesizer inventors envisioned when they created the synthesizers they did. Because really, Arturia has covered so many of the bases and covered so many of the traditional things and covered so many of the things that people are looking for today. I just can't say enough good things about it. It's really one of my favorite synthesizers of all time. And that's saying a lot. I don't know if you've been through my videos at Automatic Gainsay, but I've been lucky to have my hands on a fair amount of vintage synthesizers, analog synthesizers, and I just can't get enough of this one. Anyway, the reason I'm here is because Arturia has asked me to make some presets for the MatrixBrute. And so I've actually done that. I've made 32 presets. And I want to tell you that my philosophy in the making of these presets basically is educational. I don't know if you want to use these, that's super awesome. But really, I made a lot of them so that you could see what was possible. Some of the clever, interesting corners that are present in the Arturia MatrixBrute that could be exploited. So I've created a lot of sounds to say, hey, look, you can do this with this. I personally like some of them and will undoubtedly use them in recordings. But in any case, I'm going to go through them and sort of give you an outline of what I was thinking and how it was made and why it's important or special or interesting. How I've implemented Arturia's great design is interesting. Not to say that these are necessarily fantastically wonderful, but still, the point of the matter is, fantastic synthesizer. I've made some presets. Let's have a look at them. Okay, this one is called MATRIXVOICE, and it's predicated upon something that I absolutely love about the MatrixBrute. Because you have two bandpass filters, you can set both filters to bandpass. You can set both filters to 12 decibel per octave. You can create, and they both have resonance, you can create formants, which is to say the dual peaks that exist in the human vocal tract that creates the human voice. So you can create human voice sounds. Now, I haven't put the amount of effort and time into these to make really realistic voice sounds, but at least I've made some vocal sounding voice sounds. This one, of the two that I made, this is the lesser vocal sounding and kind of cartoony vocal sounding, but still it is vocal sounding and you can hear it. I've obviously, as you just heard, I have aftertouch controlling an oscillator so that we can get a fifth if you press hard enough. Let's see, I have M1 controlling VCO1 level. So that's just VCO2, which sounds a little bit like a JX 3P patch I used to have. And M2 controls VCO2 level, so we can take that out of there. Which makes it sound a bit more vocal. M3 is controlling the VCF's master cutoff, which means we're going to shift those formants. So you actually get to change the vowel that's being sung with the master cutoff. Which is cool. And that's just, creating vowels is just setting the peaks of the two formant filters to different frequencies that are found in those natural vowels, which is how I made the sound. And how I've made other sounds is identifying frequency peaks of formants in order to create vowels. And M4 controls effects dry wet. By turning it up, you get more of a reverby sort of space that this vocal effect can take place in. Or take it completely away. That is a patch called MATRIXVOICE that uses formants to create vocal sounds. My third patch is called PIANETISH. I don't know if you've ever tried a Hohner Pianet, but I have a Hohner Pianet T, and it's one of my favorite electric pianos, primarily because it feels so good. Basically, it's a little rubber thing that is sticking to a tiny metal tine, and when you press the key, the rubber thing flicks the tine and causes it to make an electric piano tone. And the Pianet has a really sort of nice sine wavy sound. But if you run it through like an equalizer and a compressor, you can get really cool sounds kind of like this that I've made. And this is a polyphonic patch. Not a very loud patch, but I really love that sort of, I don't know, it's hard to explain why I love this. Let's see what we have going on here. Basically, we have LFO affecting pulse width. We have LFO2 affecting pulse width of oscillator 2. Oscillator 3's pulse width is untouched, which causes a little bit of variety that's interesting in a polyphonic patch. We have a whole bunch of stuff going on as far as the keyboard affecting the filter cutoff point and aftertouch. As you can hear, I'm playing a chord, and then if I press harder, I'll get a different tonal sound. Also, the keyboard's affecting the VCA. Usually when I've done that, I've done it because like a sound gets really loud in the treble or really loud in the bass, and I kind of want to equalize it out so that the level is consistent over the spread of the keys, and you can use keyboard to control the VCA to cause that to happen. Okay, so also I have M1 controlling Steiner out level. So you can get a diversity of sound there. I have M2 controlling delay time. I love messing with delay time. That's why I did this. There's no other reason for it. It's just me being self-indulgent. M3 is controlling the envelope attack. Obvious reasons. And 16 is glide. Polyphonic glide where each oscillator has a different experience of the glide is really cool. Is that not awesome? Yeah, I love that. Okay, so that is my little tribute to the PIANETISH. I called this one MATRIXPOLY. And I have said this, and I'll stand by it. This is one of my favorite polysynths of all time. Yes, I know it says paraphonic, but to be honest, it's not entirely paraphonic. You can direct a variety of this functionality. All three envelopes can control the levels of all three oscillators, which means you can make it non-paraphonic as far as amplitude is concerned. And since you have two different filters, you can make it at least not entirely paraphonic by having control of two different filters for two of the three voices. So it's not entirely paraphonic. It's not fully articulated voices, but it's somewhere in between. It's in this magic place. So I like the fact that you can have a polyphonic sound with oscillators and wave shapes, wave shapes being different for each of the oscillators and their frequency and even their amplitude. So you can create some really orchestral sounds. So a lot of my polyphonic sounds take advantage of that, including this one. And I can play the same chord over and over again, and it changes as I play it. And why? Because the polyphonic playing is causing different oscillators to go to different notes of the chord I'm playing. And in doing that, you get a really rich, incredible sound. If you play, even on a great synthesizer like the Prophet 5, if you play the same chord, it's going to sound pretty much the same no matter how you play it. But with this, you can actually control the movement of the oscillators being connected with individual keys, and it makes a different sound for every single stroke. Which is much more lively and much more interesting, and that's why I like it as a polyphonic synthesizer. Let's look and see what we have going on. Oh, let's see. What's M1 controlling? M1 is controlling effect dry wet. Kind of wacky, something I would like, maybe not something you would like. M2 is controlling the VCF's master cutoff. So you can get some different sounds with that. 3 is controlling, oh, we already said that. 2 is actually controlling the tone rate of the effects. So that's what we were listening to. 3 is controlling master cutoff. Which creates a very different harmonic focus. Kind of a phase shifting effect. Cool. And 4 is not connected to anything. But that is MATRIXPOLY, me playing with the fun things you can do with a polyphonic synth that's set up in this way. So the next patch is called NOVACHORD. I don't know if you know this, but I used to possess a NOVACHORD, and I absolutely loved it as a musical instrument. It has a really unique sound. And so I thought it would be interesting because of the filter arrangement of the synthesizer, I can create the timbre of a NOVACHORD, and also because it's polyphonic. Yes, it is. Okay, here we go. And it makes me so happy to hear it because that is what a NOVACHORD sounds like. And I've given you some of the controls that a NOVACHORD has so you can sort of shape your sound. The NOVACHORD is all formant filters, so shifting the filters, I have the filters set to be formant filters, like a vocal sound, because that's what the NOVACHORD had. So by affecting the filters, you can get different NOVACHORD sounds. So all of the macro knobs are set to do that. The NOVACHORD had a mechanical LFO. It actually had 2 of them. So I've added that as a possibility here for your sound. So you can use two different LFOs at once to affect the pitches of the sound, giving you a more authentic NOVACHORD sound. But that's your NOVACHORD right there. Next, we have MATRIXVOICE 2, which is another instance of me using the filters set to bandpass filters, resonant bandpass filters at 12 decibels per octave. So let's hear what this sounds like. This reminds me so much of a patch that was written for the RCA Mark II, where it sort of sang a song. And I sort of emulated that. And I love it because it's obviously not a human voice, but it's enough like a human voice that you're like, okay, that's a robot trying to sing. That kind of thing was what I was shooting for. And again, you can affect the sound by using the macro knobs. You can change the timbre. Number one, M1, is affecting the pulse width of the sound, which actually gives it different timbres. Number two is adding a octave below voice. M3 is, again, we're shifting formants. And 4 is also shifting formants. And using those two formant shifts in tandem creates different vowels. But yeah, that's my second voice sound. Next, we have a drum pattern. And I called it Start on 4 because it starts on 4. I'm not sure why that was what happened, but that's what happened. So you can use it as a drum patch, but be aware that it starts on 4. Here we go. Okay, so we have a number of things going on here, including, sequencing, but a lot of the sound comes from the fact that the LFOs are synced and they're going at different speeds. They're synced to quarter notes and 16th notes and etc. So that's why you're getting the hi-hat sound, and that's why the snare's happening when it happens. And really, I'm just doing some basic accents to achieve the sound. The sequencing aspect of it is not as important as how the LFO, the two different LFOs, affect at different speeds different sounds. That's what's really generating the drum sound that's happening on Start on 4. So that is Start on 4. The next one's called Pretty Poly. Which I thought was just a really nice polyphonic sound that you could use in anything. I don't know, I just really liked it. I hope you like it too. There's nothing particularly exciting about it. It's just a bunch of sawtooth waves that are affected in a variety of ways. There's the VCO 1 and 2's sawtooth ultra effect is happening. We have the mod wheel affecting the filters, making them darker if you'd like them to be darker. We have aftertouch affecting the VCA, giving it a little boost in amplitude. And then we only have macro knobs 1, 2, and 3 doing something. Let's hear what they're doing. The first one is effects dry wet. You get a totally different sound if you turn that all the way down to 99, negative 99. Kind of a weird distant French horn sound. The second macro knob controls ladder out level. So totally different tone and character. And the third one affects, oh, it looks like we have some audio rate modulation coming from VCO3. Just messing with that a little bit gives you some interesting changes in the sound. But that is basically pretty poly, and I just really, just as a polyphonic synth sound, I really liked it. Okay, next we have a sound called keyboard sync. And what I've basically done in keyboard sync is I have used the keyboard to affect the pitch of VCO1 specifically in order to affect how it deals with sync. And it changes the timbre of the sound because the change of pitch of VCO1, because it is synced, creates new timbres. So as the voltages from the keyboard progress upward, we get a different pitch for each note on top of the pitches that are already happening. So it creates a different timbre for each note. Sounds like we have some velocity sliders going on there too, but it creates a really interesting timbre. And of course we have M1 stuff going on. M1 changes the VCO1's pitch. So you can also play with the sync effect there. M2 affects, what is it? VC, oh, the master cutoff. Rather subtly. M3 is going to affect VCO1's ultra saw. And, you know, with these wave modulations that you have in the Arturia setup, they affect how your sync's going to sound. So messing with the ultra saw, etc., will generate sometimes subtle, sometimes intense changes in timbre. So that's happening. And then mod 4 is effects. Kind of a weird sound, but I like it. Kind of reminds me of Wendy Carlos for some reason. I'm not sure why. All right. MS-20A. This is a sound that I made where I specifically used functionality that matched the functionality of the MS-20 and matched it to an actual MS-20 so they could sound exactly alike. And I didn't stop until playing the MatrixBrute and playing the MS-20 resulted in a sound that I couldn't differentiate between the two. So this is an MS-20 sound. You'll notice that the filter routing is it's serial instead of parallel, just like it would be in an MS-20. So that's basically what we're dealing with here, and there's really no modulation. It's just matching those timbral effects without any patching at all. Next, we have a MINIMOOG sound, where I just basically adapted the settings of the MatrixBrute to match the functionality of a MINIMOOG, and just created a sound on the MINIMOOG and recreated it with the MatrixBrute with the same settings. So basically, this is the MINIMOOG and the MatrixBrute sounding like each other. And because of the incredible functionality of the MatrixBrute, it has a Moog style ladder filter right in it, so it's capable of doing these things. And since you have the ability to set it to last note priority and legato functionality and the glide and 3 oscillators and a ladder filter, I mean, you really can truly get close to MINIMOOG sounds with it. And I matched this to my MINIMOOG, so when I had this patch set up on my MINIMOOG, they both sounded exactly alike. Well, they were very minor. Anyway, they sounded incredibly similar. So there's a MINIMOOG. Okay, next we have POLYSEQUENCE. And the whole point of this is to show you that you can sequence polyphonically on the MatrixBrute, and you'll see how when you look at it. But really what the trick is that you tune the oscillators to a chord, and then you're able to, using the sequence mod, change the pitch of the third so you can get major and minor chords. So that's the trick behind that. And so, but yeah, using that creatively and then manipulating the different pitches with other modulation sources can yield some really interesting results, like in this sequence. All right, so these are the patches I created for Arturia for the MatrixBrute, and I hope you have fun with them. If you have any questions, contact me about them. And yeah, feel free to use them, and certainly pay attention to the way that they indicate the capabilities of the synthesizer. Thank you.